you can always start with, a security posture manager. So posture is like, what is your score? Because think of this, when I talk about business premium, when we talk about Defender, I mentioned about all different products on the Defender, right? And I'm not expert on Defender, and my maybe maybe we don't have one single person has access, knows about everything in today world, right? So, but it's good to know where to start. Even if I don't know, for example, what's the best way of deploying one product, if I don't know how to start. I go to our the security portal. So we have, we talked about Entra. So when we talk about Entra, let's do this. This is Entra, entra.microsoft.com. This is our identity platform, right? This is where you go for
identity, right?
Identity. Now, we talked about, so just leave it there. I come back to this. Let's this open. Okay, while waiting for this, let's just go. This is, I already had actually this one here open, but anyway. Security.microsoft.com is where we are all about Defender and Sentinel, all Microsoft security products. There is all added here, and then we have Purview, which is our data.
Okay, so purview.microsoft.com would be the place to go to for data protection. Security.microsoft.com would be the place to go for all threat protection related stuff, right? And finally, you also spoke about entra.microsoft.com, which would be a place to go for managing all the identities, right?
Yes,
great.
And
Okay,
aka.ms Intune for our device management.
device
So it's
management.
like, so this is the main area you want to go for different products, right? Different feature set, or covering holds your trust. Now, here, if you go to security, let's say start with security portal. Here you can have, you get visibility into quickly where you are from, it's quick overview of what's going on, what devices maybe have vulnerability, what's going on based on, again, if you have deployed it, right? It's like, for example, if you have the device onboarded. But even if you don't do anything, you can always start here, Microsoft Security Score, right? Maybe you want to start here. So this is demo environment. Of course, 46.88, 46.84 is not a great score, right? And if I go there, it tells me my identity is 37.39, my data is 8889, and then I have a device 4872, and then I have application 4898, right? So quick overview of what's going on. You also shows the history, how my score went up and down, right? And if I want to see how can I improve it, let's just minimize this side. How can I improve it? And what you can do, you can go to recommended action, and then you can filter by product. Let's say, for example, I say, I'm good with Intune, for example. I'm good with this and that, but I want to see actually what is the recommendation here for Defender for Office. I have no idea what should I do. You just go select Defender for Office, and it gives you all the recommendation and what is your points achieved. Right, so it means if I just go do this, I get 8 points. And then how can I do this? It shows their implementation guide, how to do it, all what you need, what license you need. Sometimes you may say, okay, I'm business premium, I don't have P2, so I want to skip this one. And then you can actually go and then check here and then say plan, risk accepted, all those you can have. If you are managing your environment, you want to have some sort of history data there for what reason you haven't implemented, you can do it. So, but what I'm trying to say is like start with secure score, right? And then when, as I showed you, you can just go there and then how you want to work on an identity, just go and then select Microsoft Entra and then look at that. If you want to look at Intune, just go Intune and then look at it. Exchange Online. So it's like multiple different way, but get the recommendation. Or you may say, I don't want to have any filter. I want to just go here and then sort by highest one, and then this is if I just do this, turn on Microsoft Defender for endpoint sensor, then it's getting just 10 out of 10, right? Like that. Anyway, so this is starting points. Now, we mentioned about zero trust. Start with identity, protect the identity of the user. How we do that? So it's like that slide, that one pager I showed you was, there was an engine where you say, based on this condition, do this or access. And that's conditional access. It's part of Entra ID P1, which is included in Business Premium. When you go to Entra, I just want to show you one actual thing here. Here you can see, it's just, you should have actually, yeah. You see, there is in Entra portal also with identity secret score. This is just covering the Entra ID, right? So you can see, but this is also visible there too. And then it shows you what license. But I just want to show you, if you just start with Entra, you can still go here and then see what recommendation is. On the overview page of Entra, I can see which license my tenant is on. But for what I'm showing you now, you don't need P2. Again, we don't have time to go through all the benefits of P2. But for example, when we talk about risk, we bring P2 conversation, but let's forget about P2 now. Just focus on what's available. In the conditional access, which is the zero trust engine, I call it, you can see multiple policy. And in the policy, this is where you want to, simple word, when you want to force MFA, which is the simple way, if you start with doing something here, usually you set the MFA, right? But MFA is just one part. Let me show you what's there. It's like how it works. Again, what's the best practices, what policy you create. I can show you today. You just go one click, maybe you can set up all those policy. But what is here? You can have the user, you say who is going to be targeted for this policy, and then who is going to be excluded. In exclusion, you may want to have, if, for example, if you have hybrid tenants and you have and connect sync, you may want to have the sync user, for example, excluded, right? If I don't have sync user, it may not show here. I don't have sync user. You can have that excluded. But if you have break glass accounts, you may want to exclude break glass accounts, right? But that's how you can include and exclude. So even if you want to test something, you can add just one user there. And then you can also have some policy may not apply to the guest. So you may want to consider that, okay, am I going to target this to guest users or B2B users or not? But don't worry about it because there is a wizard, there is a template, you can use that one too. When I do that, when I set up who I'm targeting from the user perspective, so which identity I'm targeting, I can go and then says which resource. Resource, if you remember, I said on the left side, it was about all those signals, which including device, ID, user, and groups. On the right side was the resource, which was Office 365, Exchange, SharePoint, Salesforce, ServiceNow, anything. So here you can go and then select resource. You see all the application. For example, if you want to just target Office 365, you have Office 365, which include all those Office applications, including Exchange, SharePoint, Yammer, Office, Teams, Forms, all there. I'm just giving you example. I'm not giving you this how you do it, because how you do it, I'm showing you the best practice later. And there are more than this into the Entra. I don't want to go that far, but just want to quickly show you other options. User action, odd context. There are a lot of advanced scenario here you can use. Like user action is who can register. I mean, where can I register my MFA? If I'm sharing password with the user over, let's say, personal email or SMS, and someone get the password before the user, and then they can go, register MFA. What if someone else registered for MFA? I mean, I'm not saying do this or that, but just think about it, right? So if the user wants to register from unmanaged device, register from unmanaged or untrusted network, then you can have the policy on user action. And odd context is like, what if the user wants you want to have like, the user is okay, do MFA access everything, SharePoint access is okay through MFA, but what if I want to have stricter requirement for highly confidential SharePoint sites? I want to treat highly confidential SharePoint sites different from normal SharePoint sites. In that case, you see there are, again, odd contexts where you can go further. I'm not going to break it down, go detailed, but I just want to give you, there is more than just resource in the conditional access. Okay, we go here, and then let's say I do all resources, everything, and global secret access is for web firewall. Or you can have like, it's like our global secret access is not included in BP, so I skip it for now. And now you can have a net. Okay, let me just select it all, and then I go to network. You can define, are we talking about any location, not corporate network, anywhere, country. You can go here, and then you can have location based on country, based on GPS location, based on compliant network, non-compliant network. There are multiple ways of doing this, but remember, don't use this for excluding your users to not do MFA when they are in the office. I see that is still happening. And remember, we say assume breach, verify explicitly. Don't trust. Don't say because the user is in the office, they don't need to do MFA. Why? Because if the user do MFA and then go out of office and then go back to office, it's not going to be another MFA. As the user do one MFA at least. So make sure you use this properly. Okay, let's just go here, and then you don't configure it. And then on the condition, you have a lot of options there. You say user risk, sign-in risk. If the user has the credential leaked on dark web, for example. Insider risk coming from the data. So if the insider risk is, again, is not part of business premium, but just the integration between data security and identity. Think of, you have a user termination happening in 7 days. User is going to be leaving company, and then the user is exporting a lot of files to the USB or sending a lot of, you see some activity which doesn't look like normal from the usage of the data for that user. So the insider risk in the purview can tag the user as a risky for data, right? And then you can say if the user is risky from data, right? And then you can take action. Let's say, for example, in this case, you want to say if the user has risk from the data security perspective, block users access to Office 365, right? You can do that. So that's, again, signal sharing between different products. Device platform. Do you want to have different policy based on platform? Because as I said, in Zero Trust, you want to have maybe a different policy based on the device type the user is using. So here you can say iOS, Android, Windows, different. Say, for example, you may not want to have bring your own devices for Windows or bring your own devices at all, right? So that's where you can decide about which platform you are targeting. Location is similar to network, and then client application. One of the, again, another pillar on the Zero Trust was apps. The user is using browser, using the legacy application, using the modern application, right? So you can have the policy based on that. And then some devices may want to be excluded. For example, Teams devices, which is not used by user, but there may be some devices use some identity, but that identity is not actually user identity. So you can have separate policy for that. And Authflow, let's skip this one. And then it's about how app is going to connect on behalf of user, allow the app to sign in, like setting up Teams, for example, on the Surface device, or TV, for example. You want to add something that's about that. So that's why I'm skipping that. It's not coming here. So we said all the condition, right? How now we can tell if, that assume breach, where this come from? How we can use, again, in the conditional access, bring that assume breach. So what we said is we want to make sure device is healthy or device is compliant, right? This is just one checkbox. When you check this, you are asking a user to use compliant device. And how this device can be compliant? The only way you can make the device compliant is have the device enrolled into Intune. So that's why even if you don't want to manage the device, make sure the device is enrolled so you can set the compliance, right? That's the critical piece. So by this, even if the user using the home PC, they have to enroll to make sure the device is managed by the company. Sometimes you may not want to have the user on the mobile device to access the data. Sorry, if the user trying to access data from the mobile device, you may not want the full management, so you don't want the compliance, but you want to have app protection policy. This is even for the BYOD devices. Okay, even if on your mobile device you don't want to enroll, you need to make sure your application is protected. So you need to use protected app. If you have protected app means, for example, again, from Intune, you can manage the application on the device without enrolling. So it's like I can use OneDrive at my phone to access SharePoint's data, but I cannot copy paste into my iCloud or through WhatsApp or through Telegram, through anything, right? So that's block can be happen.
Amir, a quick question. Amir, a quick question while you are on this. So as we all know, that Windows 7 is end of life now, right?
Yeah.
So is it possible to use some setting here and say that anybody trying to use Windows 7 as an operating system should not be allowed into the network? Something like that is possible?
Yeah. So when you do this, you are actually blocking Windows 7 because Windows 7 cannot be enrolled.
Right. Because the idea is that, with Windows 7 being end of life, very clearly there are going to be security holes in the operating system. But and for those users, they automatically become high risk users. So can I say that, okay, Windows 7, no access, so that, automatically people will know that, okay, they have to do something about it. So that was just a thought.
Yeah, so you are not telling the version of Windows, you are telling if the device is not compliant. And who decide about the compliance is not Entra. The decision on the device not compliant is Intune. And I show you how you can do it there. Right? So it's all about what all you're doing in this screen is about you are asking for signals from Intune.
Okay.
Right? And if you, again, as I said, device app protection is for the scenario where you don't want to have the device to be enrolled, but app to be protected. So that means you still care about your data, but even if the user, you want to make it more open to the end users to use, for example, mobile devices or use Edge on Windows to access, but same time, the data is protected. Okay, so now you go here. Of course, if you want to do MFA, you add MFA. You may not want to combine everything into one, but if you want to do MFA, you do MFA. And then if you want to have phish resistant MFA, you can go here and then you define a stronger type of MFA, right? For example, you may say admin has to do phish resistant, but the end user can just do any MFA. And then, of course, there are some best practices, like you don't want to make sure maybe user use SMS. SMS is not a secure MFA method. It's better than password itself, but again, preferably you want to use switch to authentication or passkey and make it stronger. You can run the policy in a report only mode or just turn it on, and then there are again more here. You can also go to the session control. This is where if the user, for example, you can want to say if the user is on home PC, for example, you in the condition you say device is not compliant. So that's why I want to persist browser session to never. Like what it does is like if I'm using logging into Exchange Online from my home PC, if you want to allow it, at least never persist. Don't let the user persist browser session. So it means if the browser is closed and open and my son come back to that, is not be able to access if I forget. Because sometimes it's just how you quickly press on yes, and then it save it and then done. But this is blocking that. There are other options here, signing frequency, but again, just let's ignore and skip those because we don't have time to cover all. Now, how actually you can create the conditional access? So if you go to conditional access here under my policy, I have a lot of policies created. And what you can do, I show you another portal. This portal is familiar to all of you, admin.microsoft.com, right? This is where actually you manage your Office 365. When you go here, under setup, should be loading. There is a deploy conditional access policy, this one. So when you click on this, and then let's get started. Here, what you do, even if you have any policy there, you can go there and then maybe you want to start. I recommend this one, Zero Trust. Click on this, and you can see review. It shows all the policies going to be created. Now, if you go to next, you have the list. You can decide which one to be included, which one not, right? And then you can decide which one to be on or off, like that. So you can select, and then whatever you select here is going to be automatically created for you. Ready. You want to have in report only mode, in report only mode, on, right? That's it. So that's how you do it. Okay, I close this one. So far, our Entra Zero Trust control is there. Of course, Entra is not just for this. Entra is for about app registration, app integration, a lot of other stuff there. User governance is there, right? But our focus is about protecting the user. If I go to Intune now, this is Intune, right? I mentioned about how we want to make sure that we get the device signal, and for the Intune, if I quickly show you the components in Intune, think of like few pillars here. One is like device itself, and when we talk about device itself, we talk about which platform, and then we talk about configuration of device, compliance of the device, and the application on the device. Think of three main pillars, like what configuration I need, what is the compliance state, how we can define the device is compliant or not. That's the compliance policy. And then application on the device. With the application, of course, we have app deployment, app configuration, app protection. Goes further. But these three are the critical piece: configuration, compliance, and applications, right? And of course, the device itself. The device itself means we have which device is allowed to be enrolled, which device is not allowed, what the BYD is allowed, not allowed, all can be configured here. And then you can define device limit. You can say what type of onboarding you have, because you should think about how you are going to bring device into Intune. For example, if you have a corporate owned, you can have, let's say, Apple Business Enrollment or program, or the Google Zero Touch program, or Samsung Knox, still if it's there. So what happens is you send the device or give the device to the user turn it on out of the box, and then as soon as connect to Wi-Fi, it says, oh, this is for Tech Giant, and then they have to sign in with that Entra ID accounts to get the device ready. You don't need to touch anything. The user doesn't have to do, just need to sign in with the Entra ID account. That's it. Now, here you see device configuration and compliance, these two parts. These two are the critical piece. So if I want to start look at Intune, I start with these two, right? After, of course, have my enrollment done. So you need some preparation. For example, for Google device to be onboarded, you need to have managed Google Play integration. For iOS, you need to have Apple certificate, which is free. You just get it there and then you set it up. There are some guidance there, easy to do that. But of course, your Intune should be prepared for that. And when you go there and then, let's say, even if you don't want to do any configuration, you go to compliance. And let me show you just something here. Because I said Entra get the signal from Intune, right? How? This is where I go to, let's say I go to Windows here, select Windows 10 and Windows 10 compliance policy, create. Okay, so device health. What is the device health? BitLocker has to be enabled or not. So think of like, but you just create a compliance policy and says device property. Let's just go there. Minimum OS version. I need my minimum OS version to be 10.0.254.8769, for example. I don't know what version is going to be, just typed it. But think of 24, Windows 11, 24H2, 24H1 is the minimum you will allow, right? So if someone using anything older than that is going to be non-compliant. What happens if the device is non-compliant? Nothing happened. unless you go to Intune and say, I need require compliance, and then if the device is before 24H2, it's going to be blocked, right? So that's how it works. You define the compliance here and then assign to which device target, because again, when you create it, you say who, because you don't have to worry about impacting anything, because you can test it with one user. You can test it with one device. That's the beauty. So you don't have to worry. Of course, even if you apply to all users and all the devices become non-compliant, don't be scared. All the devices are non-compliant. As long as you have conditional access to block non-compliant device, you are not going to be impacted, right? And so one more thing. I said, assume breach. How I can use breach data here. So Intune is about management and then compliance of the device, or application management of the device. Now, the device is risky from the breach is a vulnerability, or a virus is running on it. It is coming from Defender, right? Defender shared the signal. And this is where I can say, I want the device to be clear by Defender for endpoints as clear. Or Defender for endpoints should say at least the device is at low level to make sure it's compliant. So now if I say device has to be at clear, means if Defender for endpoints says device has some risk, Intune says, oh, as per Defender, this device is not compliant, so I mark it not compliant, so Entra is going to block. So think of how signal come from Defender for endpoints to Intune and goes to Entra. So full control from Defender. And all of this is in Business Premium, right? So you don't need any other license, because Defender for MDB is there, Defender for Business, Intune is there, and then you get all of this. Okay, so any question, Suresh here?
Yeah. So here now, so it's pretty obvious that, okay, we can put the versions of the data here. Now, one of the things which is there is that, one question which keeps coming about is that people say, why should I enroll my personal device? Because the fear is that if I enroll my personal device, then the company gets everything, they see everything. So is there something, how should the companies address the queries of the people? Because A, you want to give access to the personal devices for flexibility purposes. B, you want to assure them that, look, I'm not looking at your data. So how do you address that issue?
Yeah, so, I mean, we have actually technical documents there explain what is visible, what is not. And then definitely the personal data is not visible to the company. And so in some scenarios, for example, if you are using Defender for endpoints, right, for blocking certain websites, so we are not monitoring the websites, but if something blocked because of detection of the malware is going to be reported or recorded only in the malware scenario in the Defender for endpoints. So that's the only where you may see, okay, this website been recorded because of malware detected there. Other than that, we don't see anything. We don't see that. I mean, even the iOS, let's say, for example, if you enroll the device, even doesn't need even Microsoft say anything. Apple is going to tell by enrolling, this is what is visible to the company. And that's what you see there is more about, okay, device state, device version, this data is not showing about what data is on the device, what's the usage pattern of the user on the device. You get maybe app inventory for if the app is blocked. If there is, you say the user shouldn't have this app and the user have that is going to be reported as detected. App detection can work. And if that's the concern, think of it's a balance between what you as a company going to offer to your users and what the user wants from the productivity and using. You say, okay, if you don't want to bring your own devices, it's okay. But if you want to access the corporate Wi-Fi, it's only available through Intune push. So if you want to get Wi-Fi, if you want to get VPN, you need to do Intune. If not, you can't, right? But if you want to just use Teams, we'll let you access, but we have app protection in place. App protection means you don't need enroll, but the device is going to be just registered. In that case, there is nothing from the device management perspective, but you as IT can have to make sure the user is using protected apps, right? For example, now we say, okay, you can access email, but app is protected. That means you cannot use Mail app on the iPhone. You cannot use Gmail app on Android. You need to use Outlook on phone. And that way I can protect my data and also make sure your device is not jailbroken.
Okay.
So that control is still there,
Okay.
but no management. So no visibility at all.
Amir, I think your screen is frozen. So
I'm in Intune device compliance. So it's like, it's not showing anything.
Yeah, now, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. We secure, manage access. Yeah.